Okay, gang. So we are going to practice these row operations on little 2x2s. Okay, well, 2x2 augmented matrix. Okay, maybe you'll see how these row operations are beneficial. Okay, so we start by writing a matrix. 3, -6, 9, 2, 1, -4. Okay, remember now, the order is important. We want to get this to be a 1. Well, the only way I can get this to be a 1 would be to multiply 1/3 times row 1. And that will be my new row 1. Okay? So I'm going to multiply everything in row 1 by 1/3. And that's my new row 1. I didn't do anything to row 2. So that stays the same. Okay? That's what we meant by, that's why you jot these things down. So that when I look at this matrix, I'm like, wait, how'd I get there? Oh, I multiplied 1/3 times row 1, and that's my new row 1. Okay, so the order is get the 1 here, and then get zeros underneath it. So I have to turn this 2 into a 0. Can't multiply everything by 0. That just zeros the whole row out. That's, it said non-zero. So what you do, guys, is I realized that I'd like to take, if I could add -2 to 2, that would be 0, correct? So I'm going to take -2 times row 1, because -2 times 1 would be -2. Add that to row 2, and that will be my new row 2. Okay, remember you're allowed to add non-zero multiples of one row to the other. So I'm going to take -2 times row 1, add that to row 2, and that's going to be my new row 2. Okay, so what I want you to realize is row 1 is staying the same. I'm using row 1 to get to a new row 2. So let's do this one at a time. -2 times 1 is -2. -2 plus 2, 0. -2 times -2 is 4. 4 plus 1 is 5. -2 times 3 is -6. -6 plus -4 is -10. Okay? All right, so I got my 1, 0. My next job is to move to my next column and get the 1 first. The 1 would have to come down here. I get a column of 1. So my goal is to turn this 5 into a 1. So I'm going to take 1/5 times row 2. That will be my new row 2. I'm going to take 1/5 times the whole row 2. Okay, row 1 again is just staying the same. I'm just going to go ahead and write it. And now I'm going to take 1/5 times everything in row 2. 1/5 times 0 is 0. 1/5 of 5 is 1. 1/5 of -10 is -2. My last job is to turn this into a 0. So I'm going to do a similar thing that we did up here, but this time I'm going to multiply by row 2. I'm going to take 2 times row 2, and then add that to row 1, and that's going to be my new row 1. Because if I take 2 times 1, that's 2, plus -2 is 0. So I'm taking 2 times row 2, adding it to row 1, and that will be my new row 1. Okay, so row 2 is going to stay the same because I'm getting a new row 1. I'm going to take 2 times row 2. 2 times 0 is 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 plus -2 is 0. 2 times -2 is -4. -4 plus 3 is -1. So now I have my answer. X equals -1. Y equals -2. I'm going to check it out and make sure that works. I'm saying that X is -1. Y is -2. That's -3 minus -12. Negative 3 plus 12. Yep, that's 9. Negative 1, negative 2. Negative 2 plus negative 2. Yes, that's negative 4. Looks like my row operations worked. Is it easier just to solve a 2 by 2 our ways that we've been doing since Algebra 1? Substitution or elimination by addition? Yes. But when I get up to a 4 by 4 or a 5 by 5, it's easier to crunch these numbers in a matrix. Okay? We're just practicing them. All right, let's move to this one. Of course, before I even do this, I need to rearrange it. 3x minus 2y equals 1, and x plus y equals 2. Okay, I wanted to get my x over here and my 2y over there. Now I can write my matrix, 3, negative 2, 1, 1, 1, 2. Okay? Number one goal is to have a 1 here. Oh, if I switch rows 1 and 2, let's just swap those. If I swap rows 1 and 2, just put row 2 where row 1 was. You know, I'm allowed to do those, interchange rows. Okay? So there, I got my 1 there pretty quickly. I need this 3 to be a 0. You get your 1 first, then you get your 0 underneath it. So I'm going to take negative 3 times row 1, add it to row 2, and that'll be my new row 2. Right? Negative 3 times 1 would be negative 3, plus 3 would be 0. So that's the way we do that. My row 1's going to stay the same. I'm going to take negative 3 times row 1, that's negative 3, plus 3, 0. Negative 3 times row 1. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3, plus negative 2 is negative 5. Negative 3 times 2 is negative 6, plus 1 is negative 5. Okay, I got my 1, 0. I'd like to turn this into a 1. So I am just going to take negative 1/5 times row 2. And that'll be my new row 2. Okay, I'll go horizontal here. My row 1's staying the same. But I'm taking negative 1/5 times everything in row 2. Negative 1/5 times 0 is 0. Negative 1/5 times negative 5 is positive 1. Negative 1/5 times negative 5 is positive 1. I just need to turn this into a 0 yet. So I'll take negative 1 times row 2 and add it to row 1. That'll be my new row 1. So that will give me, let's see, my row 2 staying the same this time, right? I'm multiplying negative 1 times row 2. Negative 1 times 0 is 0, plus 1's 1. Negative 1 times 1 is negative 1, plus 1's 0. That was my purpose. Negative 1 times row 2 is negative 1, plus 2's 1. So it looks like x is 1 and y is 1. That was exciting. Let's see, if x is 1 and y is 1, I have 3 equals 1 plus 2. Yep. If x is 1 and y is 1, 1 equals 2 minus 1. Yep. 1, 1 worked out. Okay. All right. Let's try this with a 3 by 3. Okay, I had some other examples, but I'd like you to try this with a 3 by 3. Okay, so let's set this up, and then we'll move to the row operation. Okay, so I set this up as a matrix. Notice this is already 1, so that's fantastic. I have to make these zeros. I usually do that in one step, okay? 2 different row operations, but one step. I'm going to take 1 times row 1 and add it to row 2. That'll be my new row 2. I'm also going to take 1 times row 1 and add it to row 3 to give me my new row 3. Okay, that's unique since they're the same number there. I can do that. That'll give me 1, 0, 0. Notice my row 1 staying the same, so I might as well write that. I take 1 times row 1 plus row 2. That's my new row 2. So negative 3 plus negative 1. Negative 1 plus 2. Negative 3 plus 1. Same thing with row 1 and row 3. negative 3 plus 2, negative 1 plus negative 1, negative 3 plus negative 2. Now I need to move to this and get this to be a 1. I move to my next column. I want this to be 1. So I'm going to take negative a fourth times row 2. That'll be my new row 2. Okay. So row 1 staying the same. Sometimes I just write the rows that aren't changing. Row 3 is staying the same. I'm just taking negative a fourth times everything in row 2. That'll give me negative a fourth of 0 is 0. Negative a fourth of negative 4 is 1. Negative a fourth times 1 is negative a fourth. Negative a fourth times 2 is positive 2/4, or positive a half. I'm going to use this one to get my zeros in the row 1 and the row 3. So I'm going to have to take 3 times row 2, add it to row 1 to get my new row 1. I'm going to take 1 times row 2 and add it to row 3 to get my new row 3. I choose what I'm multiplying by being the opposite, right? Because I want to add them to get 0. Okay, so it looks like I'm using row 2. Row 2 is going to stay the same. But for my new row 1, I take 3 times row 2 plus row 1. 3 times 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1. 3 times 1 is 3, plus negative 3 is 0. 3 times negative a fourth is negative 3/4, plus negative 1 is negative 1 3/4. 3 times a half is 1 1/2, plus negative 3 is negative 1 1/2. Okay, now for the next one, we go 1 times row 2 plus row 3. 1 times 0 is 0, plus 0 is 0. 1 times 1 is 1, plus negative 1 is 0. 1 times negative a fourth is negative a fourth, plus negative 2 is negative 2 1/4. 1 times row 2 is a half, plus negative 5 is negative 4 1/2. Okay, so we do have some yucky fractions to deal with. Ugh, that's okay. I am going to rewrite this, though, so that I have mixed numbers are not the best, okay, for figuring out what to multiply by. So I'm going to rewrite these as improper fractions and make this negative 7/4. Negative 1/4 is fine. Negative 9/4. And then negative 3/2, 1/2, and negative 9/2. Okay, this I need to be a 1, so I'm going to multiply row 3 by negative 4/9. That'll be my new row 3. So my other rows are going to be the same, negative 7/4, unfortunately, negative 3/2, negative 1/4, a half. I'm going to take negative 4/9 times negative 9/4, that's 1. Negative 4/9 times negative 9/2, what's that? Positive 2. Okay, and when I took negative 4/9 times the zeros here, they became zeros. My last step then would be to take 1/4 times row 3 plus row 2. That'll be my new row 2. And 7/4 times row 3 plus row 1 will be my new row 1. Do those and I'll show you the answers because time's about out. Do that multiplication and addition. You should get 2, 1, 2. You took 1/4 times 2. Okay, 1/4 times 2 is 2/4 or a half. Added that to a half and got 1. You took 7/4 times 2, that's 7/2, plus negative 3/2 is 4/2 or 2. Check them in your answers, and it's correct. Okay?